Hello and welcome to the Art of Decluttering podcast. I am Amy Revell. I just kind of self-checked as I introduced myself and realised I said art. Very, very clearly pronunciated. So hello. I am the podcast host and owner of the Art of Decluttering. I'm doing something that Jared, who is our sound engineer, hates me doing while I'm recording, and that is I'm clicking my mouse. So I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to play with my silent fiddle toys instead, which are podcast approved. I run the Art of Decluttering, which I've said. We are a decluttering and organising business in Australia. We provide in-home services and then virtual sessions all over the world. I've got courses and I've written a book and like 350 podcast episodes. So it is lovely to have you. If this is your first ever episode, welcome. You may want to go back to like the welcome back episode just before Christmas maybe, or just, whatever, just start now if that works better for you. Today's episode, we are talking about the freezer. And the reason I want to talk about the freezer is we're all like 2 weeks post-Christmas, which means you've probably finished eating all of the leftovers in your fridge. Your freezer has probably been neglected for a couple of weeks. You might have a little bit of ice cream left in there, but you probably haven't been eating out of your freezer for 2 weeks because you're trying to finish the ham and all the different things. So today we are focusing on the freezer and how do you get your freezer ready for a good declutter and then an organise, which is the part that I love even more than the decluttering of the freezer. But it also reduces waste, which is going to make you feel better, save some money, and then you're going to also have some meals that you don't even have to prep for, which is a triple win. So we're going to aim to eat through your freezer, like literally everything in your freezer. You're going to eat it or you're going to bin it. That's the 2 rules. Aside maybe from the Hydrolite icy poles that you've kept in there in case one of the kids is vomiting or something, I will give a pass to any kind of post-vomit icy pole that you have in the freezer. Everything else has to be eaten or binned within, let's give it, say, a time frame of 3 weeks or a month. Let's go a month. Let's be generous. You've got a month to do a freezer clear out aside from the vomit icy poles. They don't taste like vomit, though some would argue perhaps they do. So what we're going to do is you're just going to open your freezer and just kind of have a look and see what you have. When I am helping clients to declutter their freezers, so often at the front are the things that you're going to access more often, and at the back, who knows what is in those Tupperware containers, particularly if they're not completely clear containers and you're like, I don't even know what's in there. And you open the lid, you're like, I still don't know what's in there. So there's a couple of things we're going to do. I want to encourage you to do like a freezer lucky dip. And the lucky dip is based on the Tupperware that you don't quite know what's inside. So I think there is a way to kind of get a general vibe, and it's whether it's tomato-based or not tomato-based. So tomato-based, I have a bit of a rule about how to do, create a really good lucky dip dinner from tomato-based. Non-tomato-based, I'm open to suggestions because I really don't know. So for us, if we're having Mexican, tomato-based, and we have a little bit of the Mexican mix left over, that will go in the freezer. And the same with like spaghetti bolognese, the same with a casserole, a curry. Those things will end up in the freezer, and it's usually like a 2-person serve. I don't always know exactly what it is when I'm pulling it out. So if I see like black beans, I'm like, okay, that's probably Mexican. If I can see like carrot, I'm like, okay, that's probably bolognese. But you're still never 100% sure. And so here is my top tips. As Chef Amy, you all know how much of an incredible cook I am. My fail-safe for lucky dip dinners is add carbs and cheese. And then you have a meal. So if it's pasta, you can add any carb. I think you can add pasta, like if it's a pasta sauce, you can add pasta, rice. I would even go like corn chips, naan. You could like just cook it and then get some really good bread and toast that. All you need to do is carbs and cheese and lucky dip, and you have a meal ready to go. That's really good if you've got a night where the kids are out or there's just 2 of you at home, or where you want to have like a fancy dinner and you don't want the kids to have the fancy dinner. Like you want salmon and broccolini and you want some good stuff and you want to give the kids a lucky dip dinner. Pull it out, defrost it, give them carbs, give them cheese, happy as a pig in mud. That is my top tip for the freezer lucky dip. When you're pulling out other things that is like a single ingredient, I have a completely different strategy. I'm going to share it with you in just a minute. We're going to go to a quick ad break and I'm going to be back before you know it. All right, strategy number 2. First strategy, freezer lucky dip, carbs and cheese. Second strategy is the individual ingredient Google search. I started doing this, I would say like 10, 15 years ago. And that is where you've got like a little bit of stock, some peas, you've got a bit of bacon, you've got, what else do we often find in a freezer? Sometimes there's like special cheese that you've frozen, you've grated a really strong Parmesan and you haven't used it all, and so you've put it in the freezer. You pull out those ingredients. You want to pull out like 3 to 4. You don't want to go crazy. Pull out 3 to 4 ingredients and put them in Google and just say like recipe. So it might say, what did I say? Peas, stock, bacon, cheese, recipe. And then just go for your life. All then you need to do is just get like the other few ingredients that go with it, but you're using those up and you're probably creating a lovely meal that you wouldn't have created otherwise. And this works for sweet or savory. So I've definitely done this when I've come across things in the freezer like frozen berries, a tiny little bit of ice cream, I'm trying to think if there was once some cream. No, I think it was coconut cream that we'd frozen. And so you can come up with some incredible, well, you don't have to come up with them. That's the beauty of it, is Google will come up with some recipes so that you can actually eat through the individual items within the freezer. Sometimes there's a bit of puff pastry. You might just want to pull that out and make something special with it, or you might just want to pull it out and do what we do, and that is put a bit of butter on it and then some sugar and then some cinnamon and put it in the oven. Oh my gosh, the best. So you want to like kind of figure out how you're going to eat through the things, because if you just say to yourself, oh, we've got to clear the freezer, you're up the creek without a paddle. But if you use my fail-safe carbs and cheese and then you use the Google strategy, I believe that through those 2 strategies, you're going to be able to clear a lot of what you have in your freezer. Then we're going to talk about organization. And this is the part that I love the most, because having an organized freezer is like one of the things that has genuinely made me feel like an adult. I used to be a clip on the bag or packet, or fold the packet over, or the twist and shove. I was all for those when I was young, fast and loose, some might call it. But as I have matured and as I have discovered what really matters as an adult, I've discovered that clear containers in the freezer is the way to go. I will concede that Snaplock bags are also quite good because they're clear and they kind of fit to the shape of the thing that you're freezing. So I'll take both. And you want to give your freezer a good clean out. There is often, just bits of crumbs and things that have fallen out. Give it a really good clean out and then organize what you have into clear containers. So for us, everything except for ice cream and potato wedges. I'm thinking if there's anything else. I don't think there is. Ice cream and potato wedges. Everything else is decanted into clear containers. The only reason that ice cream isn't, it just doesn't make any sense. It comes in its own container and I know what it is. And we don't buy ice cream very often. And it would be stupid to melt it to do, get the idea. And wedges are a really funny shape and we always put a whole packet in the air fryer. So it's kind of pointless. Everything else is decanted, put in, and then you can see what you have. And I have like areas in the freezer. So this is like the vegetable area. This is the frozen treat area. And here's where all the meals, like frozen meals ready to go, defrost and eat, go. And I find that really helpful because then when I go to write the shopping list, I can just open it and go, oh, in the frozen vegetable area, we don't have anything, or the frozen fruit area, there's nothing. And this really works for me. I know it may sound a little bit over the top, but it works for me and I've helped lots of clients set it up and it works for them too. What this does help for me is to prioritize what you want to use your freezer space for, because freezer space is really limited if we're just talking about kind of your top or bottom freezer on a fridge freezer combo. There's plenty of people with deep freezers and all of that type of thing. You guys have the luxury of whatever you want, but also you're probably going to waste some food because things get lost down the bottom. We do have, Kirsty and I recorded an episode on freezers. So if you just go into your podcast app or on my website, just search freezer and you'll find episodes on how to deal with the chest freezer or the second freezer, that type of thing. But when you're talking about a top or bottom combo freezer, you do have limited space. And so having the different areas helps you to prioritize. For me personally, I'm going to highly prioritize potato over ice cream. Don't like ice cream, love any kind of baked potato goodness. So wedges, fries, potato jams in particular, all of that gets priority. And so I'm not going to create, a whole lot of space for ice cream because I'm going to have like these frozen veggies or snacks and that type of thing in there. I have a controversial one. I'm not sure where I land on this completely, but ice cubes, valued player or waste of space? What do we think? Ice cubes worth having? Is it just seasonal? I've got some Tupperware ice cube containers that you can kind of fill up. Once they're full, you can put them on an angle so they're not all having to be stacked. Look, I don't know. They're not in the freezer at the moment. I'm not sure if they're a waste of space because I often forget that I have them. What I do love doing is cutting up lemons or limes, whatever's in season, whatever anyone's giving away really, chopping those up and freezing them because they're great in a Diet Coke or something like that. So when you're also doing your priorities, one of the things that you want to think about as a final tip is to assess your shelf life. Try and say that 3 times fast. Assess your shelf height. Assess your shelf. No, can't do it. Assess your shelf height. Because you may find that 2 of your whatever clear containers you choose to use, I use a steamer, you can use whatever, might fit if you just move your shelf height up or down a little bit. And so that's a really good way to maximize the space in your freezer so you don't kind of have a little bit of space that you can't actually fit anything in. Also, they say in freezers that it's not a bad idea to have room for the cold air to move around. So you don't want to pack it so tight, but containers will often give you that little bit of room around it. And so that's a win-win. All right, I think that's everything for freezers. I want to know what strategy you use, how you went with the fail-safe carbs and cheese, how you went with the Google the ingredients of individual items. Tell me if you've made any really good discoveries, and give yourself a month. So we're talking mid-Feb, maybe by Valentine's Day. That's really 5 weeks. I want to know if you've managed to empty out your freezer, give it a good clean, and then go for the shop. Fill it with things you're actually going to use. Make sure you come over to my Facebook community on Facebook, ironically enough. The Art of Decluttering community is what you search in Facebook to find it. Come over there. Tell me how you're going. Give me some podcast tips. If you've got an episode recommendation, you can email me at hello@theartofdecluttering.com.au. And I will see you really soon with the next summer episode. Bye. I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land this podcast is recorded on. I would also like to pay respect to their elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love you to rate and review the show on your podcast app. That will help others to find the Art of Decluttering podcast as well. If you'd like any more information, you can visit theartofdecluttering.com.au, and I would love to see you in my Facebook group. Just search the Art of Decluttering community on Facebook and join today. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day and enjoy the freedom.